Just to affirm who am I? All right. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, everyone. Oh, and greetings, of course, but welcome all of you to our Sabbath Insight. Those of you who are first timers, those of you who are consistent timers, and those of you who are old timers who will probably catch this maybe years from now. Thank you for the ones in the chat. I see it, so I know I can be heard. I do appreciate that. Thank you so very much. Yeah, so last shadow we had a great build session. Some of the brothers came through, and sisters, you're always invited too. By the way, I know usually the brothers come through, but it's not a male meeting. Though we do get sisters once in a while, but just put that out there. But yeah, we were speaking about different topics, and that was a beautiful time to have with you all. And one of the things that I shared today is that I would be kind of going a little bit in on perfection. Before we begin that, I want to introduce myself. I am Chief Yuya Asan Anu, and I am the head Jagna and founder of the Anu Nation, also the head of the Anu Life Global Ministries. And every 7 days, or every Sabbath or Saturday around noon, we come together and we learn stuff and we break our brains apart and we till the dry, hardened earth that surrounds our heart so that we can get to the soft part of who and what we are, where we're most flexible and where we're most ready for enlightenment. On 6th day or Friday evenings, we also bring in the sunset, or the Sabbath for some. It just be bringing in the sunset, usually with a build session, just share some of the stuff we're working on, some of the things we've been thinking about, or might be thinking about right there in the moment. Sometimes you get thoughts right there in the moment, So I want to just welcome all of you who are coming in for the first time and thank you for being here. All right. So with that, I want to get into what I want to speak a little bit about today, which is going to kind of pivot and center around tribe. And I know I've had some conversations before around tribal thinking, so I won't necessarily retrace my steps. And this is actually going to be a bit of an intro into a series, another series. I tend to do things in series, but one of the reasons I do that is because it keeps people from getting like inundated and overwhelmed with too much information at once. Like if I say, hey, I'm just going to take one day and just go through everything, then I'll be speaking really fast. And, you may not have time to really process everything that's being said. Also, series are a good way to organize the information, and for me to be as thorough as possible, which I like to be, because usually after something is taught, we're on something else, and someone may have a question, and it's like, instead of us going back there, check it out. There's a series I did. You got 4, 5, 6, however many videos you could dig into and get all the information you could possibly want. So that's why I usually do it in that format. I prefer the series. So I'm going to be digging in, and this series coming, if you are into anthropology, history, and I would say even interstellar thought or interstellar metacognition, you're going to really, really like where we're going next. Okay, you're going to really, really like it. It starts to pull together a lot of what we talk about as far as like when we say, well, where I knew, what the heck does that freaking mean? Right. But really starts to pull together, especially if you read the Anu Way and you're reading in that opening chapter where it speaks about this sort of genius being implanted in various places, throughout the world grid, or this world matrix, this earthly matrix. And sometimes you see certain commonalities. And of course, a lot of times we attribute that to Pangea, or when the entire landmass was called Asia, when it was just one place. Or Pangaea, really. But it's not really necessarily just that, there is a stream of thought sometimes that drifts around that certain people are plugged into. So we sometimes make the assumption that like one person maybe traveled around, like we read certain stories about Arumila and him teaching and traveling and teaching, or Yahushua traveling and teaching, or Buddha traveling and teaching, or Krishna traveling and teaching, even Dionysus traveling and teaching, It's always this sort of thought like one person has it, and it, then it's shared with other people, as opposed to we all have it. We all have access to it, and some people utilize that access, and other people don't. And as a result, there creates this collective sort of tribe, if you will, or this collective frequency that many people will take advantage of, right? So I wanted to get into that a little bit, and we're going to pursue that, over the next couple of strongs, like what that looks like and what that has look like across different cultures. Like I said, if you're a fan of anthropology, maybe even history a little bit, and cultural congruency, you'll love it. You'll definitely love it. The direction we're going to go in, just for a little bit, you know. But I wanted to speak about like what creates some of that, some of that way of thinking and that way of being. And one of the first things I want to touch upon is language. Language is one of the most distinct cultural markers that we have. As soon as you hear someone speak, you pretty much start to piece together like, okay, this is this type of person, or they're from this place or whatever. Language kind of gives away to a person's identity very quickly. I tell often people who travel, depending on certain places you are, especially around the continent, people won't really know you're not from there until you open your mouth. And then, especially if you're from the West and they have you have that American accent, of course, which we don't hear, but it's heard. As soon as you speak, it's like, people know like, oh yeah, you're not one of us, depending on, your phenotype, So, you know, the root and basis of this concept that we call like magic is based around speaking often. Magic is being able to speak in a way that it causes things to happen, but also thoughts to be behold or to be beheld, and profane facts to be purged out of one's system. That is the essential basis of magic. And it's something different to process or to see a thought and then to behold a thought. When something is beheld, when it's contained and carried within the psyche, that's much different than just like, oh, I saw a dog run across the street, an acknowledgement of a light projection and emission in my 3D reality. That's different than beholding something. So magic is, when you're talking about the linguistics of it, the speaking of it, it's that ability to speak in a way where things happen and things shift, and then in others' eyes it's beheld, but then there are facts that are thrown out. So sometimes like you'll go to like, just say like a illusion show, a magic show, and someone will perform a particular illusion, and it will cause you to purge out what your perception of what could be. Like, even if it's temporary, because it's always temporary, but you'll purge out like, I just saw him cut that woman in half. How? You can't do that, or can you? So there's like this purging that happens, and sometimes that can happen in a very good way when you have organic tribe that's created based off of good and right standing principles, and sometimes it can happen in a way where it's weaponized against you. And it's important to know the difference, especially now we live in a time where digital tribalism is such the norm. And digital tribalism is so strong that it can cause people to literally like go bankrupt, because if you say something that is against the weaponized or political agenda of another group, then we have this thing called cancel culture. So they'll seek and strive to cancel you, because you have gone against the agenda. And often this is a way, and it's very powerful if you think about it, because it doesn't really require any deep militaristic physical presence, but you can shape the thinking. You can destroy a democratic process through cancel culture. I want to go this way with it, but if I do, I'm going to lose business here. I'm going to lose friends here. I'm going to lose respect here. So I'm going to go this way with it. So in that way, it's a very subversive and slick and, very sort of slick sort of psyops or psychological operation where you can defeat, the perception of democracy in that way, through digital tribalism, right? So that's taken on or replaced. I don't want to say replaced, but maybe has run parallel to organic tribalism that we've had in the past, or even like what a lot of Western scholars started to note around the 1950s. Their perceptions and their interpretations of tribalism, especially what would be considered indigenous tribalism, was so foul. Even the names they gave them, cannibals and stuff. And it's like, when the Pilgrims came here, they were eating people because they couldn't grow food. Like, you're the cannibal. And then Jeffrey Dahmer was like, making short ribs out of people. Like, you be eating people. But sometimes it's the perception and the grid that we find our way stuck inside of it. And sometimes that could be the magic of getting you to look at the facts of things and then say, nah, and then purging certain facts out and then taking on the illusion, even if temporary, but it affects the thinking. And thinking is so important, and the refinement of thought is so important, because what you can't think, you can't do. And there's no way around that. And sometimes even if you do something and you don't think that's something, you didn't do it. It'll pass you right by, because you weren't able to process it through the matrix of thought, or through the plane of the mental. So if I can lock down your thinking through different forms of light code lockdown, and there are multiple codes of light code lockdown. If I can lock down your thinking, then I can absolutely lock down your doing, or your perception of what can be done. And, I think I spoke about this recently, and, there's a programming that typically people who take psychedelics, they can a lot of times shift out of that programming periodically. I am not an advocate of psychedelics. I go up the rough side of the mountain. I can get there without the shrooms, but I do understand how some people do use them and feel that they may require them. So there's a phenomenon I want to get into, as we're speaking about this phenomenon of tribalism, which, is always going to be present. And I'll explain why a little bit, but language, right? If we look at language, there are three primary components of language. And I would say that the three primary components of language are symbol, reference, and thought. Right? These are your three main components of what make up any language, like any language, right? It's going to be symbol, it's going to be the referent, and the referent, like I said, it could be what's being referred to, or what's referring, and it can be thought. And what happens is that first off, when you are sort of uttering a word or uttering a symbol, you immediately think of a word that's based on the experiences that you can refer immediately, right? So if you see a hazard sign, or a oxidization sign, or a chemical sign, whatever it is, you immediately will associate that symbol with the word. It could be danger. I mean, some signs have danger under it, but it could be danger. And then you will immediately associate danger with an experience that you've had, whether one day you were snatched back from the road by your mother because you tried to run out in the road before the light changed and she caught you just in time. And that feeling of being yanked back, and that may be what's stuck in the psyche of where there's danger present, burning yourself on the stove, falling off your bike, not wearing a helmet, not knocking it, whatever it is, right? So you have that uttering of the symbol that creates that first, and then we go to what's being referred, and that could be the actual object of a person, that the symbol is describing. That's the referential aspect. And then you have the thought component. Now, what's interesting about the thought, your thought doesn't have, it shows that there's no direct relationship between the word and what's referred to. There's no direct relationship at all. There is no, the referent and the symbol, they don't have any direct or any causal relationship with each other. Okay. Now, this is really important, believe it or not, when you start talking about tribe, because when you're functioning within a tribal mentality and within a tribal space, your symbols and your words or your reference all start to have a relationship with each other. When you're functioning outside of your own tribe, your what has a symbol and what it refers to, it doesn't relate to anything to you, for you, but you're told that it should. So, for example, you might see an American flag, and it might not mean anything to you. Like, I don't know, stars and stripes. Okay, what does it mean? I don't know, but I know the word. I know it's flag. I know it's American flag, but I don't actually know what this meme. It's not a meme for me that holds any sort of significance, but I'm sort of biohacked to believe, or to made to believe that it's supposed to hold significance for me. You see? So as opposed to, like, I think for me, a symbol of like an Afro pig or a hot curling iron, it immediately takes me to a place, even if I don't say the name properly. That symbol takes me to a place, and I can guarantee it probably takes 15 or 20 other people who are listening right now to a place just like that. If you see that pig or you see a hot curling iron, it takes you to a place, as opposed to other things which may not. So when we're looking at thought, we have to look at what is thought made of, right? And I mean, we know. So if I give you a thought right now, pineapple, right? So I had to rush it on you. I didn't mean to scare you, but I had to do it that way for a reason. I'm pretty sure most of you have experienced, even if you've never eaten a pineapple, you've seen a pineapple or draw a picture of one when you were a child or something like that. But there's some connection to a pineapple, right? I know that the moment I said pineapple, you tell me in the chat, when I said pineapple, did you see a pineapple in your mind, or did you see the word pineapple in your mind? As soon as I said pineapple, was it an image of a pineapple, or was it the word pineapple within your own internal mental space? I'm going to give you an opportunity to put that in the chat. So like I said, we have, okay, Dondre says an image, Isaiah image, Yahweh image, Menelek image, Yamina image. Okay, Steph image. Sahaba image, Jaquez. They both kind of occurred simultaneously. Okay, Now said, I saw it, tasted it, and smelt it. All right. Okay. Maria image. House of Yuya image. Chris image. Jaquez, maybe Jaquez changing his vote. Maybe the image came first, but the word followed immediately after. Okay, but we got to go with what came first, because thought is the fastest unit of anything in the universe. So what comes to your first thought? Nothing moves faster than thought. Light, sound, nothing. Abaru image. So we pretty much overwhelmingly, I'm pretty sure it's image overwhelmingly, right? So that tells you something right there. Your thought is not made up of language. That's a very important point. Thought is not made up of language. Thought is made up of light. If you have an image in your head, right now inside of your head is pure darkness. That's why recently I encouraged that we watch the movie Insidious on movie night, which we did inside of Anu. And one of the things that I have stressed over the years and I shared was that, and Zach, Said image as well. One of the things that I have stressed is that the spiritual world is a world of darkness. It's not a world of light. Of course, when you look on TV, it's like everything is light and it's like we're just floating in the light. There's no doors or nothing. It's just light all around us because, devils will never show you what spirit truly looks like. They don't want you to ever get there, And like I said, if you can't think it, you can't do it. So if you don't have a proper image in your mind, then you'll never get there, or you'll walk right past it and not realize, yeah, I was just in the spiritual realm. But you didn't know because you thought it was supposed to look like Michael Landon from Saved by an Angel was supposed to be there, and he wasn't there. Or, Morgan Freeman was supposed to walk up in an all-white suit, and it's supposed to be all white around me, and that didn't happen. So I must have been somewhere else. I must have been in hell because it was all dark. No, if you were in complete darkness, you were in the spirit realm. It exists within darkness. So it's just like your thought or your mental space is a spiritual space. Believe it or not, your thoughts are spirits and spirits are thoughts. So when I said pineapple, a light went off. Let there be light, and the light was good, right? So the light was the image. The images are made up of the refraction of lights. Like right now, you are seeing me because of the way the light is reflecting off of me, and it's creating an image, right? So all things that we see are a product of light, right? So when we look at language, we start to realize that our thoughts are not necessarily connected to a language, but our thoughts are connected to an image. And if we're thinking certain things, then we can produce light in the form of those images. This is called manifestation, right? Real simple. But if I can hijack the way you think, then I can hijack the way you imagine. And once I hijack the way you imagine, then you'll produce for me, my sweet little baby. You'll produce what I want you to produce. I'll say something like, if I had 3 wishes, I would wish for world peace. And you'll be like, yeah, I should be wishing for world peace. Yeah, that's what I'm not wishing for world peace. Get the hell out of here with that. I know what's supposed to happen. I know that the rise of my people back to our source does not come as a product of world peace. I know that. There has to be a decision made. And that decision is typically made through war. So I'm not wishing for world peace. Why are you telling me to wish for world peace? I wish that all the starving people in the world could be fed. They could be fed. Stop blocking access to food. So for all the starving people in the world to be fed, all the evil people have to be done away with who are blocking access to the food. There's food all around us. But we don't think that there's food all around us. Half the time we go out with our lawnmower and we destroy all the food that's offered to us by the earth in our own yard. Meanwhile, your grandma inside is dying of cancer. And you pulling up and cutting down all the dandelions. Because somebody told you that's a weed. They're pretty. Even if you left, they're yellow. Who doesn't like yellow stuff in the grass? Yellow and green go together. Oh, you got to cut that down so your grass will look nice. So if you can't think it, you can't do it. Right? So your thinking has been hijacked. So therefore, your possibilities have been hijacked in that sense. Right? So this is where we start to get to the sort of the dissolution of our tribal thinking and our tribal ways. They're dissolved because our proper thinking has been dissolved. What are some of the ways that we got around that, or we can get around that right now, right? What are some of the ways? Gibberish. Let me get into what I mean by that. Gibberish, right? We have this form of singing that we call shamanic singing, right? And one of the things that the first song, I know some of you came in late because that's what you like to do, but the first song that came on that opened up the segment was I Am, right? That's a song I did. I actually did that song, I think 2000, 2001, something like that. It's actually a very old song. I know I only put it out a couple of years ago, but it was just sitting, and I was like, put that out there. But it was more of the reason it sounds so weird, right? The reason it sounds so weird is because it was just a freestyle all the way through, And what I did was I had a dictionary and a paper dictionary. Like, right, where you gonna find one of those nowadays, right? And like I was just reading out the dictionary and singing what I was reading. So you can hear it, and like every verse sounds completely different because I was just vibing. I had the bass going do 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 do. And I was like, okay, do 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 do. I am ready. I am there. Because all I wanted to say what I was, but I didn't want to say what I was and then defeat what I was. The way we defeat what we are is by our own ego. I'm great. Then there's that voice like, man, shut up. Yeah, let me shut up. I'm beautiful. You got a big head. Yeah, I do got a big head. You see, there's always that demonic accuser of the brethren that sits in the bottom of the skull that takes us away from what we're saying. So the way we get around that is we use gibberish. We use gibberish. Some people call that shamanic singing, right? So when I'm singing, I am da, 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 just singing whatever, right? Whatever comes to mind, just sing it. Because if I sing it instantaneously, I don't have an opportunity to defeat it, right? So we use singing, and in particular, shamanic singing is a method that's used to control the texture of a hallucination, right? So a lot of times, if you're having certain ceremonies, whether it could be, psychedelics that may be used at the time, or even trance experiences. If you're drumming someone into trance, or if you're chanting someone into chant, one of the ways that you guide the experience is by way of singing, right? But you don't sing like, precious Lord. You don't do it like that, right? That would throw you off. So you might just be like, or just whatever. Whatever, gibberish. There's a reason you do that. That singing and that intention, it's, like we talk about the difference between intent and impact, right? That's used often where people will say things like, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. So it wasn't the intention of what you were saying, but it's the impact that it had in your delivery. That is a real thing. You could tell somebody, hey man, button your shirt, or button your shirt. Obviously it means two different things. So when we're using shamanic singing, and you can use it on yourself, same way I did it in that song. I just hit record and was like, all right, just whatever. All right, grab and look for, it's dictionary. Right? So what happens now when you're within a hallucination, you're inside of a hallucination right now. You use the singing to guide the texture and to shape the texture and the fabric of that hallucination, right? So that only happens once you find your own voice, and you have to find your own voice and within all the freedom that you possibly can. It's extremely important, because there's a transpersonal sort of realm that we begin to channel, through our use of shamanic singing or our use of what we call gibberish, right? And gibberish is an important word. It's not the same word as gobbledygook. Gibberish comes from gibber, Gibber, comes from geber, Geber. And geber is a Hebrew term that means man, or it also means mighty. Like, we had certain Nephilim that were called the Gibbarim. And the Gibbarim mean the mighty ones, or the strong ones, or the valiant ones. Like I told you before, you remember, like when you read certain scriptures, like they use one word for everything. That's to throw you off. Everything is Lord. Everything is God. Everything is sons of God. And you don't realize that you have to look at the real language to understand that there are different categorizations and classifications being given there. But you have the Geber, and Geber. Geber means man, or it means valiant one or mighty one, a strong one. And from Geber, you get gibberish, because it was said that the language of the tribe of Geber, the men of Geber, it was said that they spoke Geber or gibberish. And essentially it was called gibberish because no one could really understand them when they spoke. Imagine the power of that. Imagine a language that no one could actually crack into. If I can't crack into your language, then I can't hack your language. So gibberish was actually a good thing, right? So another form of gibberish, which sort of gives you a glimpse of your own, I would say, enlightened nature when you start to discover the key elements of liberation. You know, sometimes when you listen to children and, you know, like babies, and they're saying something and it's like, you know, they're saying something good, but you just don't understand it. But you can tell from the vibration and the intent of it. Or sometimes you could tell, especially with girls. I don't know so much with boys. I haven't experienced that much, but definitely girls. You could tell when they're riffing at you. There'll be little babies and you know, like, you are not happy with me right now. Like, whatever it is, this is like, you're not feeling it. You know, I remember experiencing that with like certain outfits, like, oh, she didn't want to wear that. You know, like, she, like, what did she talk? Oh, take that shirt. She didn't want to wear that shirt today, you know. But they're speaking a language that you can't hack into. You can only behold it, you know, but you can't hack into it. So, you know, there's a phenomenon that many people do know about as it pertains to language called glossolalia. And glossolalia is like what some people would call like speaking in tongues or getting happy. There's different terms that people use for it. But it is that's kind of the scientific term, glossolalia. You know, but it is that process of, you know, where it was said that the mystics of Assyria and the mystics of Kemet, they would use this particular spiritual mystical language, and they would sort of utter these phrases that would be considered unintelligible, but by using it they were able to reveal different aspects of what they call the gods or the Neteru, you know, by using this sort of unintelligible sort of speech. And of course, you have in the book of Acts where it talks about them speaking in tongues, Acts, the 2nd chapter, right? This is glossolalia. So a lot of times it's associated with the church, and that's part of the trick, you know, because it can be found in many different environments, right? And if you notice, a lot of times when someone is speaking in tongues, it freezes you. And you'll start to realize the difference between words being beheld versus words being heard. It's a huge difference. There's a huge, huge difference when your words are actually beheld, even when it's words you don't understand, you know. So the essence of using gibberish, the language of the Gibbarim or the mighty ones or the strong ones, is that you're not doing it. That's the essence of all of it. The essence of being able to speak in a way where you can connect is that you are a vessel. I know you might be like, what's all this got to do with tribe? We're getting there. Just go for the ride. Just, you know, lean back. Don't worry, I don't have the child locks on. You can jump out the back seat whenever you want. But the essence of it is we're using an expression or voice expression that I can come in contact with that causes me to begin to vanish my ego structure. Right? But I'm just, what is he saying? Obviously, I'm not saying anything that glorifies me. I'm not saying anything that bigs me up. I'm not even speaking about my pain or anything that refers back to me. I'm just channeling through like a baby would, whatever the joy is that I'm feeling, whatever the sadness is that I'm feeling, or whatever it is that's seeking to speak to me through me, I'm channeling that thing through like a child would, you see? And in doing this, I now come into contact with higher entities, or what we call illuminated souls, by doing this. You know, so that's one of the ways that we sort of hack that process, because it invites us to focus our awareness on the action, on the source of a particular action, as opposed to the action itself. See, that's the whole point. You know, a lot of times when we're looking to manifest and we're looking to make things happen for ourselves, even if we come together, we say, hey man, as dark faces, all the dark faces are going to get together and we're going to try to figure out how to get free. We'll get together and we'll start speaking about the symptoms, but we will do very little to reveal the source, outside of like very kiddie sort of thing. Well, so and so is the devil. That's like level. We got to go up a couple of levels. That's easy to do, to say. That's super easy, right? But how do we start to get to the source? You know, at some point we have to recognize that we are the silent source of all of our perceptions. And once we realize that we're the silent source of our own perceptions, then what happens is that we start to become free of our identity. This is like identicide, if you will. We become free of our identity once we realize that. Like, I'm perceiving this in a very quiet and still space within me. And that is affecting my reference or my connection that I'm having between my symbols and my words. It's my own silent perception. How do I begin to purge those facts out? I have to do magic on myself. How do I do magic on myself? I have to push energy out of me in tones where now it starts to purge out these stagnant facts. You see, I know it may sound, we're going to get into it, but don't feel away. But this is a balancing of the ecosystem. Only free people can balance the ecosystem. Slaves can't balance the ecosystem. You know, there's a spiritual ecosystem that some of us sort of flow in and out of, you know, where we're privileged at times to have a peek inside of, and we see different entities doing their thing, different Elohim doing their thing, and we're allowed to look up at the mountain. But if you're a slave, like, you can't go. You cannot go. And some of us are slaves to our own perception because we locked into old programming and old mechanisms, which has caused us to be blind. The larger part of humanity is blind. The larger part of humanity is blind because of their programming, because they refuse to let go of their identity. This is where we get into the weaponization of tribalism. This is where we get into that. We won't allow the ego structure to crumble. You see, ego structure has to crumble. You build a new one. Like, one thing about ego, it's very resilient. You know, and the cool thing about ego is that it does rebuild. You can get another one. You can start over and over in new identity, new identity, new identity. The issue is a lot of times is that in modern day digital tribalism, we're all trapped inside of this electronic grid. And we have to use the science of the electronic grid to poke a hole through it. You see, in organic tribalism, we have a form of telepathy. And I know most of the time when you probably hear the term telepathy, you're thinking like, I can read your thoughts, or I can send thoughts to you. That's not necessarily what it is. When you're speaking about it in a way for us to get free in cultural telepathy, it's when we have a cultural convention of a meaning, and we're able to shift that cultural meaning into a shared visual topography, I would say. So one example of that would be like, we hear the stories about like when enslaved folks in North America would sing songs like Sweet Chariot, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home, right? And we understood that meant, okay, we running tonight. That's what this means. This is code. We're running tonight. So, but we can't say it out loud. No one can say we're running. No one can say what this code is. No one, we over here picking tobacco or doing whatever we doing, or doing carpentry work or doing plumbing work, because we wasn't all out in the fields picking tobacco. Some of us are doing engineering work, but we're doing our work. But we can't say, we can't even shift. Over here, swing low, sweet chariot. We still measuring and doing, or reading a letter, because some of us read too. You got to know the real stories. So we might be reading a letter to the slave maker because he can't read, but I can't shift and say, oh, we're running tonight. I got to keep it right. So there's a visual telepathy that's happening amongst my tribe. When certain symbols come forth and certain words are coming forth, we're all seeing it together within a mental space. This is a transpersonal realm where now we go into another realm and we're all like, you know what we're doing? Yeah, I know what we're doing. Yeah, we out this thing. We're all getting up out of here. Right? But in our human forms, we're still carrying on our mundane activities, if you will. Now, this is the essence of the ontological aspect of being a tribe. It's being able to take certain symbols and certain words and shift them into a convention that only you really have a secure connection to. And for anyone who may have forgotten, ontology is the philosophy of being. Notice that on is in the word, is in the root of the word, ontology. So it's everything that encompasses what we would call reality is our ontology. So typically we seek out tribes because we want ontological security. We want to continue to be. We have an autobiographical narrative that we want to continue to support. When colonizers and invaders began to fall in love with us, one of the first things that they did was, and even through digitization, they began to burn our texts, our sacred texts. They burnt those. They removed indigenous children from the homes and put them into what they call residential schools. These things would be, paramount or tantamount, I would say, to not only cultural genocide, but epistemicide. I would say that using those, they had superior military technologies, and they use those in different forms. When you're looking at neocolonialism, you also have the construction of race. You have the construction of gender. You have the construction of different classes, and there's a discourse that now begins to so arrogantly rationalize the removal of indigenous groups from their own land, from their ancestral lands, right? This is a term where they claim terra nullis. Terra nullis is a term you should be familiar with. And they begin to ignore the territorial claims of indigenous people. So when we start to, like we say, try to find our vibe, trying to find our tribe, right? The ones that we vibe with, what we're seeking for is the protection or the production, I should say, of a security and a belonging, and a strengthening sort of the unity and a cohering of our own autobiographical narratives, right? Who are we? What are we? Why are we? Beyond your supposed function for me or your supposed demand for my mahogany, exactly who and what and why am I? And once we start to come into that space where we respect and value the tribe, my crew, this is my team, this is my squad, what happens is that you'll find that your general Western, in particular North American anxiety, it begins to lessen. Because a lot of us, we spend our days with a lot of anxiety. I mean, I won't even get into the depression, but a lot of anxiety. And a lot of that is because we lack the common descent, or the connection of those who have common descent, those who have common language, common culture, and cultural and ideological reliance on certain boundaries and certain territories and things like that. We don't really have that. So when we start to find that tribe, there's a reduction of those sort of anxious emotions. There's a strengthening of self-production and of how one sees themselves in the future. That's why sometimes we become so very durational. You ask someone like, yo, what are you gonna be doing 5 years from now, man? I'm just happy to be alive. A lot of people where I'm from, we don't even make it this far. Okay. But 5 years from now, I don't even know, man. Hopefully, just God willing, I'll just be being me, doing me. And it's sad. I'm laughing, but it's sometimes you can only laugh at certain things, because we've lost our sense of tribalism. And and I mean healthy tribalism, where uh, we have that sense of belonging, we have that sense of face to face recognition. Where I know this is, this is me. This is my people. I had a very interesting experience like that many years ago. I shared it not here on here, but with people personally. Where I was at a powwow, what they call a powwow, years ago, and this probably had to have been like 2000 or maybe 90 something. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. And I just remember that's when I had my locks. And I'm with my youth, and we hanging out. This is things we do. When they were younger, like this is festivals, powwows, whatever. And we coming through, and one of the chiefs were there, and the chief he runs up on me, and he was like, "Yo," he's like, "I love Bob Marley." I'm like, "All right, no doubt." Back then, again, I had big old beard, locks, all that. And but I know my people when I see them. And I was like, yeah, yeah, no doubt, me too. He was like, no, I know my people. And I was like, now I know my native history, but I didn't say anything. I just wanted to see where he was going with this. And he was like, yeah, that beard of yours. He was like, it never really gets that long, does it? It just kind of just gets, real curly around. I was like, yeah, I can't really grow a big beard. I said, I can grow a thick beard, but not a big beard. He was like, yeah, yeah, because you're not even supposed to be able to grow that. And then he was like, and you got little wrists too, right? This is when I was bodybuilding. So he's like, you're a big guy, but he's like, let me see your arms. He said, you got little wrists, right? I was like, yeah, you got little ankles too. And you can see, most men can't do this, by the way. Most men can't put their fingers around their wrist. My wrists are super small. I mean, heck, my pinky can go around it. I got really small wrists, and I got really small ankles. Right? I don't have small hands per se, but I got small wrists and small ankles. And he was like, "Yeah, you got small ankles too, right?" And then he said, "You turn to side, say, yeah, I see that nose." He said, "Yeah." He said, "You're First Nation, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And I told him, because I was registered by then at that time. I said, "Yeah, I'm registered with this particular nation." And but he knew that by looking at me, looking at my wrists, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "I could tell you're First Nation. I could see it in your face, right?" That's tribal, right? Moments like that will create less anxiety in a person, because there's face-to-face recognition. That's one of the things that are synonymous with the tribe. And the wrist thing, just so you know, like that's why there was always this stereotype about Indians, especially even when I was younger, because I used to wrestle on a wrestling team. But there was always this stereotype that Indians were good wrestlers, because but I never knew why. They just say, "Oh, Indians can wrestle." I didn't know what that was about, but apparently it was because our joints are so small that when people would try to put us in locks or even put us in cuffs and stuff like that, we were able to escape and get out because we have joints that are much smaller than other people. I don't know, whatever. I'm gonna leave that cuff thing alone. But yeah, so moving right along. So that concept of tribalism, where there's a mutual recognition, and sometimes, a lot of times it's noted by sort of like agrarian culture and things like that. That's something that is sort of typifies, when you have, found maybe a tribe. Now, the internet has created this new phenomenon of digital tribalism. And the thing about it is that you can still have a sense of belonging, but it's placeless. It doesn't place you in any particular place. And you kind of re-enter yourself into the wandering tribe sort of motif, and a lot of times groups are formed around certain commonalities, nationality, ethnicity, hobbies, things like that. But they are very intentional in the use of the word tribe, right? Because why? Because you have a symbolic reference to tribe within your brain. Like, remember the example we use of pineapple. Immediately, some people started to process, not only to see the pineapple, but process it. I smell it, tasting it, which is great. That means you're already ready for like when you're in a place like that, you're already leaning towards a meditative sort of mindset. When you're processing things quickly on a mental plane. Yeah, I'm seeing it, I'm tasting it, I'm hearing what it sounds like, biting into, I'm feeling that little sting on my tongue from the citric acid. That's how you create. Your whole head has to be full of light. Let there be light, so that there was light and the light was good. Where was the light? The light was in his head. Just like if I say, oh, pineapple, and I could say freaking gobner. Make up a fruit, gobner, because all words are made up. There's no like they're all made up. Words are containers for symbols. Symbols are containers for spirits. The words themselves are just made up. Now, many of them are based around the presentation of what it does to your mouth. So ba, ab, hawk, hawk. Hawk is hawk because of the sound that it makes. Hawk. So certain things are related, but table, that doesn't connect to anything that a table does. It's tabling. Or apple tree. An apple tree is appling, right? That's actually a term. It's appling when it's growing apples. But a chair or a table or a seat, it's not connected to anything other than the symbol that's put inside of your brain, of what a seat or what a table or a chair is. But there's no actual sonic sort of representation there, right? But like I said, globalization and the destruction of your tribal thinking, right? Where you're able to use like shamanic singing, and you're able to use gibberish to break free of the matrix. Oftentimes that's destroyed through the use of globalization, and globalization creates this insecurity and a need for ontological security. Now it's like, no, I want to be, you're crushing me. So now I want to find my tribe. I gotta find my tribe, which is normal. You're supposed to want, we instinctively, as deities living a human experience, we look for association and ways to recognize and bond with others at a tribal level of organization. And that's sort of one of the key features of human social organization, is that it always turns tribal. It's always going to go it's always going to turn tribal. It's always going to go to a tribal space. Digitally, we had certain narratives that were put forth by groups like Stop the Asian Hate some years ago. We had, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement. We had the pro-vax warriors. That was another movement, and people were sort of looking for like-minded individuals to ensure possibly the elimination of threats to their way of thinking. And for some, they were trying to eliminate the threats of globalization. and against the hierarchy of needs, which were expressed by Maslow, right? Um, so when you have this sort of contrived and weaponized um, digital advancement of counter inclusion or counter democracy, if you will, then we have to utilize organic tribalism. We have to use organic tribalism to start to surge into that sort of psychological pool where we reshape and rename, you know, what we're using for language, what we're using to create, what we're using for magic, the references that we're utilizing, and in a way that we can all come into that mental space through our own terms, right? Similar to like we always say that, like in New York, like we have different ways of using the word I, if it's a word, right? I, or UI, UI, and it takes you to so many different places because we're able to meet up in a mental space on a tribal level that other people are not able to meet up on. And it may look one way externally, and on it externally, we know, like internally, no, this is what it is. You find out a lot of times you go to West Africa, listen to people in the market argue. They're not really arguing. They're arguing, but they're not arguing. They're arguing, but they're not mad. They're mad, but they're not angry. And you might be running up like, "Hey, what's going on?" But it's not it's not a big deal. You'll even sometimes find people hem each other, grab each other. Hey, it's not what you think it is, because on a tribal level, they have met in a space where they're letting the human mythology and narrative play out. But internally, there's a spiritual tribalism that's happening where they're having a different sort of conversation that you're not in tune with unless you down with the tribe. You see? And once you understand, sometimes there's a larger tribal acylic, sometimes it's a smaller tribal acylic. I think I shared this story once. This is a great example. I'm gonna make it real quick. I was buying honey from this man once. I think I shared this before. And he has his own bees and stuff. I was in West Africa, and I was like, yeah, man, I need some honey for my oats. You know what I'm saying? So my man was like, yo, there's an old man, he makes his own honey, he has bees and everything. So I was like, all right, cool. So we went down there, and we're in his compound. We go to his compound. He's selling the honey out of like Pepsi bottles. So you can buy different bottles of honey based on the size of the Pepsi. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be here like for like 5 months or whatever. Let me get the big bottles. So I had to keep coming back. So I'm assuming his granddaughters and daughters were in the compound, right? So they're talking to me, and I'm speaking my language a little bit, because my Yoruba is decent, but it's not like it's broken Yoruba, right? So as I'm speaking, she's correcting my words, and she's like not the words, but my pronunciation, because like I told you, I always pronounce everything wrong, but I'm like, what I'm saying, and then she's like, no. Now she's getting on. She's like, if you don't say it with the right tones, you're just saying something that's not what we say. I'm like, all right, we disrespect the language, right? So he comes out, and now the haggling happens, right? So we going back and forth on price. Me and this man went back and forth for like 30 minutes. And it got to the point, like the last 15 minutes, we just throwing proverbs back and forth. Right. And I'm like keeping up. I'm throwing then I'm saying words that rhyme. I'm like, I'm from New York, so I'm busting freestyles, like, you gonna give me this honey for a good price. So we going back and forth, and like after like so now the whole compound is outside in the yard with us. Like it's like literally like a freestyle battle. Me and this old man. And I knew his it must have been like his great grandson. I knew, but I had seen the little boy around before. So I knew and he was like real funny, real like bright, charming little boy who spoke like impeccable English. And I never understood. And I would always ask, like, why is your English so good? I couldn't get it. But he was a spirit. I figured that out later, because I'm like, your English is too good for you to be human, you know. And his look was different too, man. He had like his eyes were a little up angular. He had like sharp features. His hair was kind of curly. Like, where they find you? But this was their blood. I think it must have been his great grandson. But so like after like a half an hour, he just busts out laughing, and like he gives me his hand for like £1. And he goes, "You're a black man. You are a black man. You're a black man." So I said, "All this time y'all thought I was white?" Because that's how it is over there. They thought I was. I said, "Oh, you thought I was a white man, huh?" And he said, "No, you are a black man. You are a black man. Yeah. You are black." So it took 30 minutes to convince him that I was actually black, right? But tribally, I know what you're doing, right? Tribally, just because I said I want the big bottle of honey, it doesn't mean like your payday. I know what you think it payday. Oh, he buying the big bottle. So I can, and then they do this thing where they look you up and down. How much is it? Oh, they started praising you. I know what you're doing, right? And I know what I'm going to pay, right? So at the end of all of it, I paid a good, what we call local price. I paid a good, not only local price, but a good local price, because I got I'm telling you, it's probably like 15, 20 people was out there. We going, and it's loud. It's probably like 10 o'clock at night. And we just loud going back and proverb. And I'm throwing proverbs at him. And, because I know proverbs from multiple countries. Like I'm throwing South African proverbs and I'm throwing Tanzanian proverbs. I'm like, no, because of a minute. And we going back and forth, back and forth. But what was happening was that in a spiritual space, our ancestors were speaking to each other. So in a spiritual space, his ancestors were like, he's not what he looks like he is. Anything lighter than this back here for them is white. It's a white man. So for them, I'm white. So he's like, no, he's not. He's one of the originals. I'm gonna show you. Watch. He can keep going. He's soulful. So though it looks like your daughter's getting on him, like you're not pronouncing the word right. And it looks like you, because he came out like stone faced, like, no, the honey, and it costs this much, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh man, you just want the money to go buy a beer. Like that was my first response. He's like, what? What do you say? I said, man, you don't even need the money. This place been paid for, man. Just give it to me for free. Give it to me. That's how I'm talking to him. That's how we started, right? I'm like, you don't even need the money, man. Give me. Just give it. Give me. I don't even know if this is good. Right? Because I know the game. So then one of his granddaughters was like, what do you mean you don't know it's good? I said, oh, stop talking. I said, madam, you're pregnant. You're pregnant. Quiet. You're pregnant. So now they're laughing. They're like, she's like, what's it got to do with it? Right? Because I know the vibe. Right? I am the vibe. So this is tribalism, believe it or not. And I know it sounds like a funny story. It was funny. You know what I'm saying? It was, because at the end of the night, like we were all laughing and everything. And, he was like, oh, you have to come back tomorrow. You have to come tomorrow. He's like, I will show you the bees. I'm going to show you. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll come back. Because it was like a ways from my place. But I was like, all right, I'll come back. Because I also know the vibe. If somebody invites you to their house, you go. You go. That's a big deal, right? Just so you know, if you ever someplace and you're on the continent, somebody says, "Oh, come see it could be a little tiny room they live in." You go, So yeah, man, we talk about tribalism, organic tribalism versus digital tribalism. And when you spend so much time in the digital realm, not understanding your own language and not tapping into your own language, then you're unable to flow when organic tribal experiences like that occur. This is one of the needs and the calls and culture that I saw for establishing Anu and establishing healing and learning experiences for those who are vibing on a similar vibration, because a lot of us have had our minds hijacked. Like I said, when I'm there, and mine used the middle of the night, the only light there is like one light maybe in the compound. I think I feel like we were sitting next to the light. There was one light, but it was mainly moonlight. you know, Mainly moonlight. And I'm out. Like I'm in the bush basically, and I rode my motorcycle out there. Like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, but in tune. I'm cool. I'm safe. I could sleep on on the ground in this compound right now, and I bet you when I wake up in the door, there's somebody be making me something to eat or whatever. Like, I'm good. I'm home. I know I'm home. I know when I'm home. Right? So there's a valuable sort of tendency that we have when we have this tendency to center ourselves around certain commonalities. We're centering ourselves around certain commonalities, and we're sort of looking for, I would say, those moments where we connect that magical speech, and over the next course of sessions, like I said, I'm going to explore more with you how that Anu acyclic and how that cultural and creative acyclic pokes its head out through the matrix of different communities, different cultures. Like I said, right now we're living inside of this electronic grid, and we have to use the electronics to poke out of the grid, which is, it can be very difficult. It can be a very arduous process. But as things are changing more and more, I shared some of the numerology with you all recently. I shared some of the, I'll say, the occult information or the esoteric conspiracy information. Things are changing and getting worse and getting dangerous out here. So being able to connect with your tribe, and I'm not speaking doom and gloom. I don't really like to speak that way, because ultimately we are all responsible to liberate and to heal ourselves. No matter how many shamans you pay for and have around you beating drums and singing to you, it does not matter. You have to heal yourself. The shaman, just like with the singing, only channels a voice and can only channel healing, but you are actually the one who's actually doing the process. All they're doing is facilitating the process. If I was to heal someone, I'd probably be damn near dead. But with all the people I work with, my roster of clients is like into the thousands at this point. I think in 2014, 15, I did a count, and I was like at 1,800 of like consistent. Not people like, Chief, I spoke to you 6 years ago. You remember me? Like, not really, but it's grown. So imagine if I healed all of those people, I'd be dead. I'd be dead. I have to negate from myself to kill you. That's how it works. You see what happened to Yahushua ben Pantera? So I'd have to negate from myself. So, in the same instance, as it pertains to me working with people or me helping people, I have to channel healing in order to send it to them in a proper sort of way, but I'm not the healing, So when we're talking about building tribe, let's see. There you go. Y'all got it. Yeah, we come over here with that. Children need food. There's food pantries all over the place. They'll come over here with that. But yeah, man, so in order to find that tribe, you have to start freeing up your language, because a tribe also is an ecosystem that has balance to it. And like I said, only free people can balance the ecosystem. If you have a tribe made up of like a couple of free people and a bunch of mental slaves, it will always feel uncomfortable and off kilter. It'll always feel odd. It's very similar to when you go into certain work environments. You got certain people, usually at the top of the hierarchy, who are free. And then you got certain other people who are mentally enslaved, and you can feel the tension when you walk in the door. It does not feel warm and welcoming. Sometimes you have the same thing within organizations, and you have to click up. You have to find the free ones inside of the organization. Like, all right, you know what? I know we all here to get healed and to get right, but we gonna go over here and do our thing over here, and we're gonna let them kind of hopefully get to that point one day. But that's a practice of telepathy, because there's a mental telepathy that becomes free in that sense, where now we meet into this place where we can define our own language and define our own symbols and define our own modalities of healing, you see. And that's what this is ultimately going to be about for us, is coming into that place where we connect with our tribe, we connect with our vibe, and we connect with the modalities of what we say our psyche is supposed to be, beyond how it's been weaponized against us. We're seeing that now. Always in an election year, you're going to have that. Always. You know, who you voting for? Man, you ain't voting for Kamala. What's wrong with you? You ain't voting for Kamala, man. You got something got to be seriously wrong with you. You got people like D.L. Hughley and Roland Martin and all these different cats, man, is telling you you're dumb if you don't do a certain thing, right? You know, or if you don't vote, you're dumb. Your ancestors marched and died so you could vote. Like, how you know? It wasn't that many people who marched. Like, what are you talking about? You know, and it's for the right. It's for me to choose if I want to or don't want to. But ultimately, again, this is that digital Gestapo, those digital mob tactics. And when you're connected with the security of your own magical and personal, you know, culture and own personal tribe, then you get to a space where you think different. And when you think different, you do different. But if you can't think it, like I said, you can't do it. If you can't think it, you cannot do it. Please never forget that one. So we have to expand our thinking. Why do I stress study? Why in Anu we refer to ourselves as Asafo, warrior scholars, so that you can expand your thinking, evolve your thinking, so you can escape from the electronic matrix. You can escape from this militaristic sort of space that you've been corralled into that locks down your thinking. You know, we doing well, man. I know since we're going up because we got 2 trolls so far. This is awesome. But you have to be able to think. You have to be able to think in a certain way in order to now create light emissions within your head. When you know, and that's the important thing, man. When you're thinking and you create an internal light infraction, you know, sometimes we're looking for it outside. So people ask questions like that, like, well, if I do this, if I chant this or I say this, then this is going to happen. It's going to happen when you see it inside of your head from all angles. And if you don't see it inside of your head from all angles, it will never manifest into where you think it's important, where it's not really important. It's not going to manifest into the world of addictions. You know, our 3-dimensional reality is just a place of addiction, you know. All right. So that's what I wanted to share today. And like I said, we're going on a journey with this. And I think that some of you will find it like really interesting. And I think some of you will also find it an opportunity to see where you fit into this tribe, you know, and maybe like where your flag is. You know, you want to create kingdoms, you want to create an empire by having multiple, you know, city states and multiple kingdoms, and every flag is going to be slightly different, you know, or every kingdom is going to be slightly different within that empire. And you might start to understand, like, okay, this is why I knew this large thing, because it's not just this monolith of how we function. Like some people will look and say, well, y'all like Hebrew Israelites. Not really. I was like a Hebrew Israelite, I probably would have my head covered right now. You know, just for example, you know, this is something a little different, but you start to understand that there is wisdom and great symbology and great truth. Truth is always more important than religion for me. Truth is more important than anything, you know, at the start of the day, you know, but you start to realize that when you are vibing with truth, there are other people who are vibing with truth too. And then the telepathy starts to kick in. You start to do certain things, or you see your brother or your sister do certain things, and you're like, man, I was thinking that. I was thinking we should do that, you know, or they have an idea, like, man, I had that idea. I just didn't say it, but I was thinking, because you had a conversation somewhere else about it. This is the transpersonal reality where you start to transcend the person. You transcend the human identity, and you're having connections in other places. This is no different than some people who have the talent to enter into people's dreams. This is a very real thing. Some of us know it. Some of us dreamers know it. And then some people have the talent to always pull you into their dreams, which I have definitely been a victim. I'm gonna say a victim of. I know I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but sometimes it's like, what? What? What do you want? So yeah, man, I just wanted to share that. And like I said, we'll be moving on to more of this sort of teaching and really looking at how do we transcend the person, get back into that healthy tribal organic space where we can create some ontological security for our groups and start to forward and advance our autobiographical narratives about who we are. Like I said, so many of our children have been snatched out of the homes to be educated or trained, by people who have weaponized their agenda against us. So many of us have been removed from our ancestral lands, have had our connections and associations to certain symbols completely twisted and messed up, because our brains have been hijacked, our thoughts have been hijacked. So therefore our doing has been hijacked. But just like I shared yesterday, we come into the world head first. There's a shaping of the human reality from the thought. Sometimes we don't realize that. If the world is a lesser place than the heaven of your mother's bush, then that means we're falling into a lesser place through thought. So how do we rise up to the higher place? Through thought. It's all through thought. Some might mess around, come feet first. They're a little different. Those are the different ones. But coming through in that head first manner, we recognize that we enter hell or we enter heaven through thought. That's the symbology, the human 3D working symbology of that process. You come through feet first, you got yourself into heaven and hell through deed, through your work. But anyway, with that being said, thank you all for coming through. We of course will return next Sabbath, and I'll be sharing more. You're going to really like it, and our times are going to be a little bit different going forward, but I'll share that as we're going forward. All right, but you will definitely see me and the crew on this coming Friday, or Yom Shishi, or 6th day. We always bring in the 7th day with the build session where the tribe gets together and gets to share thoughts. So please be sure to be a part of that. If you'd like to be a part of this ministry and this organization and movement, I don't usually use the word organization much. I don't really like it too much, But this movement of Anu, be sure you can go to anulifeglobal.org/join. But you can go to anulifeglobal.org and get more information about what we do, what we're about, and what the ultimate narrative is that we're looking to advance towards our destination and our objective and our purpose. All right. And for everyone saying thank you in the chat, you're welcome. You're more than welcome. It's my honor to be here and to be able to share, man, and spark something, because one of you might be the one. Somebody listening might be the one. I might be talking to the Messiah right now. Of course, we all are our own personal messiahs when we understand what that represents. But one of you may be the Messiah for your family. And you may be able to pull all your nieces and nephews and cousins and uncles and aunties and grannies and grandpas, and you may be able to pull them out of the muck and mire of their own mental and cultural insanity because of something that sparked you today. So when I say it's my honor, I don't just say that to try to sound humble. I say that because I really mean it. It's we're out here revitalizing bloodlines. All right. And with that, I say Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Be well.
Giving honor to the Most High, creator of all worlds, seen and unseen. We stand before you humbly, with hearts ready to receive your infilling of wisdom and spirit. We give honor to our ancestors, on whose shoulders we stand. Without those you designated to come before us, we would not know who you are today. We thank you for the healing balm that you send through our minds, bodies, and spirits. We thank you for giving us a name, giving us a culture, being our watcher and protector. Originator, you are the first cause of all existence. You are the banner of truth that we lift whenever deceivers seek to blind our vision and put us to sleep. Where would we be without the lessons and deep wisdom you have given us to secure a dignified life for ourselves? In times of confusion, we rely on your peace, which surpasses all understanding. You are an L of order. We stand on the promise that you will remove chaos from our lives if we walk in the divine way you have laid before us. We rest with the knowing that you are able and great. Your plans are always the best plans. Our power comes from you. Our light comes from you. Our destiny comes from you. Thank you for all of the graces you continue to bestow on us. Thank you, Most High. Thank you, Father Knowledge. Thank you, Mother Wisdom. Thank you, Messiah, for the words of power. Selah.